Today's video is about 10 things you should never do in Virginia Beach, and we're starting right now. Hey, my name is Sam Sansalone, and I'm a real estate agent in the Hampton Roads area. I do videos every week about living and moving to this area. So today we're talking about 10 things that you should never, ever do in Virginia Beach. And these things span lots of different topics. So number one, never go to the oceanfront on the 4th of July. So I used to work at a hotel in Virginia Beach that would take a shuttle bus from the hotel to the beach. Well, it's about 20 minutes normally, but if I had to take someone to the beach on 4th of July, that 20 minutes would go from over an hour and a half. Sometimes it took us over two and a half hours to get from the beach back home because it is so crowded at the beach. So you have parking issues, you got just congestion issues. There are some roadways nearby, but there are not a ton. They weren't designed for such a huge influx of people. So 4th of July is the busiest, the epicenter of the oceanfront for the entire summer. It's a tourist spot. This is the place where everybody goes, and because of that, everybody goes into the same section, and it's like a bottleneck for hours. I think it's like one of the worst things I could possibly think about doing. I'd never want to go to the oceanfront during 4th of July. I'd rather get punched in the face than do that. Now the next one is in the same beach family, which is don't make the oceanfront your home beach in the summertime. So I talked about the 4th of July. Don't go to the oceanfront during the 4th of July. But the reality is that there are so many other beaches here in the area that going to the oceanfront in general in the summertime, if you just plan on just hanging out, relaxing, is to me not a great option, especially talking to other people that I know that love the beach. Now, in the most popular area of the oceanfront, there is a boardwalk that goes from 1st Street all the way up to about 40th Street. And so that boardwalk, between those two streets, they get the most congestion from people, tourists, people staying in hotels, all that stuff. That's where most of the action is. Well, that's fine if you do want to be there, but there are so many other places, so many other beaches that have the same or better experiences and not as many people if you don't like as many people. The North End, which is north of the oceanfront, and then the area called Croatan, which is just south of the oceanfront. Sandbridge is down further south. Chicks Beach and the areas around the north side of Virginia Beach. This isn't a knock on the oceanfront, it's just a different experience, and so if you want that, all the crowds and all the people, the tourists, that's the place to go. Otherwise, you can get good restaurants at the oceanfront, but other than that, I would say you can go to several other beaches in the city and get a quieter, more relaxed experience. The next one is never ask a native how loud the jets are. So I've talked a lot about jet noise in this area, the Oceana Naval Air Station. It's loud in a lot of places on the eastern side of Virginia Beach. Well, if you ask a lot of natives what they think of the jet noise to see, kind of get a perspective on how loud it really is, some of them might say, it's fine, I don't really notice it at all. Well, I think the longer you're here, and especially if you grew up here, you're just so used to it, you don't realize how loud it can be. And so I grew up on the other side of Virginia Beach, where if I go to a place that has loud jet noise, I notice it. But even I get used to it, I think, even still, compared to some people that have never been here before. So if you're gonna move to this area, I definitely would suggest asking someone who has transplanted here or moved here from a different area that did not have any jet noise, to ask them, see, hey, how loud is it really? Like, is it tolerable? What do you expect on a regular basis? Just ask them those kinds of questions so you can get a more of a proper perspective from someone's perspective who has not been here their entire lives and gotten so used to hearing it on a daily basis. It leads me to number 4, which is never assume that if you're near the water or live near the water that you'll deal with flooding, and if you live away from the water that you won't deal with flooding. A lot of the flooding issues in Virginia Beach, some of it is because of low-lying areas in spots, but a lot of those places aren't necessarily next to water. So Little Neck, Great Neck, the areas in the north side of Virginia Beach, there's lots of waterfront around those areas. But at the same time, those waterfront areas are often pieces of land that are a little bit higher up off sea level. So you could have houses built along the water and near the water where you're not really even gonna have much of an issue with any sort of flooding or tidal issue because you're so far off of sea level. However, there are places inland that are the opposite or that have bad drainage. The biggest issue here to me is bad drainage. So with bad drainage, you'll have spots like in the middle of Virginia Beach where you may not have enough drainage out of a neighborhood or not enough retention ponds ponds nearby. There are some parts of the city that just aren't designed well enough for when large scale rainstorms come. And so then you have issues that, for example, in 2016 in the area near Princess Anne Plaza and Windsor Woods, where this area was decimated by Hurricane Matthew in 2016 because of bad drainage in this area. Now, the issues down in the southeastern corner where Pungo is kind of a marshy area. Those areas are closer to water. Now that is a spot where I would be more aware of being near the water and also being a little bit more aware of flooding issues. But in general, never assume that if you live close to water that you will deal with the flooding, or that if you live away from water that you won't. Now that leads me to a travel element. Never go anywhere without a GPS. So as a native, I feel like I know the area pretty well. I know the roads. I have like this picture, like this mental map. Even that being said, even I struggle sometimes with where roads go, which road I should turn on. In some spots of Virginia Beach, even after all these years, even I still get lost or turned around. The way the roads are situated, there's lots of randomness there. There's no planned grid system. You could drive and veer off east and kind of curl around and hook around. All the roads can be kind of wandering and meandering through the city. So that's a negative if you try and drive by memory, but at the same time, that also can be helpful if you want to take shortcuts through the area. There are the interstate systems, but the side roads or the highways, there are enough of them usually to have multiple routes to the same place from various parts of the area. That segues well into the next one, which is never ever expect the drivers here to drive well. So I've talked about the randomness of how the roads are here, and I've gotten people telling me, Sam, actually the drivers here are actually pretty good. They drive fast in places, but they drive controlled. I think that is sometimes the case on interstates, but one of the big problems in this area is the fact that there are so many roads, and there are so many roads that go in random directions, and lots of places that you can turn, start and stop, lots of that kind of stuff. I think a lot of people do feel pretty comfortable driving on these roads if they live here for a while, which is possibly part of the problem, because I think there's a lot of relaxed driving here. And then people that aren't comfortable driving here, that have to navigate through all the other people do drive pretty fast here, I think. And again, it's a matter of there's so many turns. You'll have sometimes people driving all the way across a large set of lanes to get to a left turn lane. A lot of stuff that can lead to congestion, accidents, especially when it's raining or it's icy. So I think there's just a right mix for, some difficult driving, because this area does have lots of quirks in it driving wise that might make it more complicated and does influence how people drive in this area. The next is never live here without having protection from mosquitoes. That means either having a screened-in porch for your house or mosquito protection if you're outside. This area is loaded with them, especially even if you're not along the water. The moisture is thick in the air, often in the summertime for a good 2 or 3 months. This is not just for houses near the water or standing water. You could be out, in the middle of the city, no water nearby, and still deal with mosquitoes. So when those mosquitoes come out, you are going to feel the brunt of it if they like you. And so they do like me, and so I have to know that. And we had to account for that by getting a house with a screened-in porch. You might choose the screened-in porch option. If that's not a good option for you, then I definitely would say make sure you have mosquito protection at any point if you're going to be outside for a length of time, whether it be out hanging out somewhere else or at your house. And the next is never get to the Norfolk International Airport too early. So I understand that it's important to be early to go to the airport. I'm not saying just throw caution to the wind and show up like 10 minutes before your flight. Just know that this airport is small, and so when you get to this spot, you might think that it says International Airport on the name, but it really is not a big airport. And so you could park your car, get in through the check-in to your gate, anywhere from like 20 minutes to an hour, give or take, depending on how fast you want to go or can go. But I always make sure plan ahead. But just keep in mind that this is a very small airport, so don't get there too early, because you're going to be bored out of your mind if you get there too early. The next is never assume the weather. What does that mean? Well, there's an expectation here that you have 4 seasons. Well, that's true. However, that does not mean that winter time will feel like winter all the time. It does not mean that springtime will feel like springtime all the time. You will find situations where every 2 or 3 days you might be very surprised at what the temperature is like or how quickly the weather changes. Take for example in the wintertime. The average temperatures in the wintertime are usually anywhere from like the low 40s to like the low 50s. But there are times like even during Christmas where I have worn short sleeve shirts because it is in the upper 60s, mid 70s. 70s. Even in the springtime, you think springtime, you start wearing short sleeve shirts, shorts, it gets warmer, but at the same time, I've seen times where the entire month of May has been cold and rainy. The only thing I can say that's a given temperature-wise is that for about 2 months out of the year in the summertime, it is excruciatingly hot, real muggy, humid, and a bit miserable. So the next oceanfront thing I want to talk to you about is never disrespect the local residents at the ocean. The oceanfront is a very touristy area, and there's a lot of hotels, people come, do vacations here. However, also near the ocean are lots of neighborhoods and houses that were built 60, 70 plus years ago. And so a lot of these houses are houses that people have lived in for a long time, and this is their neighborhood. And so you'll have a lot of streets that are close to the ocean that have some public parking, and some that don't have public parking, but people think that they can park there. And so people will park near the ocean and will walk down to the ocean from a residential spot, and they'll park in front of someone's house, blocking their driveway, in spots where they're not supposed to park. Either they don't realize or don't care that this is someone's neighborhood and someone's living here. So if you do plan on going to the oceanfront or any beach in Virginia Beach, and you notice that you're in a neighborhood, just be more aware that people that are here as well also live here. This is their home. So treat that area like it's your home as well. Be careful about where you park, how long you park there. Being nice to people. These roads are narrow, and so it's hard to drive through if people are walking back and forth. Make sure that if you do plan on doing anything in a neighborhood close to the ocean, that you do it with respect and treat people well, and make sure it's a positive experience for everybody that you encounter. Now, these are the never things to do, but if you have questions about things you should do or how to live or move to this area at all, please let me know. I've got my contact information in the description. You can reach out to me at any point, and I'll do whatever I can to help you. And I will see you on the next video.